I'm Claire Parker.
And I'm Ashley Hamilton.
And this is the Summer of Spelling.
Book Spells. The podcast where we read celebrity memoirs so that you don't have to. If you have ever once in your life said, what could Tori Spelling possibly have 4 memoirs about? Or if you've never said that and you think no one should ever wonder that, no one should ever even know these books exist. Well, guess what? We know they exist. And now we've read them all, like Pokemon.
Wait, really?
We did storytelling a while ago.
Wait, she only has 4?
Well, then there's the party books and the children's books.
She hasn't given us a life update in like 14 years? If she was giving us a book per summer for 4 straight years, how is she going to jam-pack 14 years into one new book?
Well, I think there's going to be hopefully a series of new books.
A series of unfortunate events, the Tori Spelling memoir.
I think much like her batches of children.
Wait, how spot on is that though?
A series of untoried events.
Yeah.
So there was storytelling, then there was Mommywood, and then Uncharted Territory, and then Spelling It Like It Is. So we've already done Uncharted Territory and storytelling, and then last week we did Mommywood, and this week we're doing Spelling It Like It Is. And hopefully soon there'll be another book because my God, am I thirsting already?
What the hell is going on, Tori? I kind of need to know. I have to tell you, though, I could see it from a mile away. Things were not on track.
If the publishing industry has ever said, we'll listen to one request from those dumb bitches who always ask for books in advance, my request is give her another try.
I have something fun.
What is it?
Ashley, if you were Tori Spelling, what would have gone in your memoir this week? How was your week like Tori?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I don't want to write about poop in my memoir at all, so that I think would cut out a lot of options for how my week could be like Tori.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll tell you how my week was like Tori. Claire and I released a web series called Memoir Practice. Season 1 is out now, all 4 episodes, and we're very proud of it and we're excited about it. And we wanted to invite some people that we trust to do sort of like a screening and focus group to find out how we can make season 2 and make it better or worse. And like in throwing this event, we had no idea how big or small to make it. So we bought, like, the way I was standing in Trader Joe's with heaps of items, Claire like fully spellinged out and said, we'll just buy every snack Trader Joe's has to offer. And then we were like walking with these bags. I don't think the Trader Joe's guy, it took him like an hour to put everything in bags because no one has ever bought so much from Trader Joe's.
Well, can I say that the thing about Trader Joe's is it's a snack-based grocery store. So when you're going looking for snacks for an event,
that's all they have.
Like when it shines. Do you know what I mean? Like you go grocery shopping and you're like, okay, here's pre-coated shawarma and some mochis. But when you're going to be like, what are lots of little desserts and nibbles? You're like, well, everything here is the most perfect little dessert and nibble for a group of people.
Yeah. And then because everything ended up taking longer than we thought, we were like clamoring to get these items onto cheese boards before the guests arrived. And it was this rush and a hubbub to the finish. And then nothing of significant event happened. It was a pleasant time. And I feel like that's absolutely Tori. Claire, how was your week like Tori?
I'm going to use the exact same event, but I'm going to come at it from a different angle.
Totally.
So we had this focus group for memoir practice at my friend's building. She has like an amenities building. So they have a screening room in it and they had 20 seats. So we were very careful with who we invited. And we invited, 20 people. And some people couldn't make it. And some people texted us like a day or two before and were like, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm sick. Or I got pulled in a meeting. And I was like, totally no problem. And I could invite more people to fill their place. I would say out of the 20 people, 9 did not show up. No call, no show. Otherwise, it was really fun. It was great. There was like 15 of us there all together. And it was like a good time. The way I can't stop focusing on the people who didn't come is very Tori of me.
Yeah.
The way that I'm like, I need to hunt these people down and have a conversation with them because I feel personally offended. I want them to understand what they've done to me over something that isn't a big deal. It was just kind of rude.
And then can I say the fact that you won't do it is the most Tori thing of all, because I feel like Tori has these thoughts.
For me to get on this podcast and blast it out to like a large number of people, but not confront anyone personally in my life and be like, by the way, just, we spent a lot of money on food for you and we didn't invite other people. And we specifically said, if you can't come, just tell us. I think it's fine not to go. You have to tell people, especially if they're like saving a plate for you.
Yeah.
I think we all understand we're adults. Life comes up, work events, whatever. You have to tell people. It's so rude to like see an RSVP where we're like, there are limited seats. Please only RSVP if you can come. But I feel like it was very Tori of me. Every time somebody was like, how to go last night, I was like, well, let me tell you what went wrong first. 9 people didn't come.
But the people who did come, we appreciate endlessly. And I think it was a really great time. And the people who didn't come but told us in advance, we also appreciate you for trying to make it and then sometimes not being able to.
And now, without further ado, our 2 of 2 installation, 4 of 4 overall installation, The Sunset on our Summer of Tori Spelling.
You guys, this bitch is crazy.
I have to say, I started this book first by accident before we started the other one. So I read some of these pages 5 days ago, and I was on shrooms reading about the pig pissing in her bed and at Govball and like looking around and being like, this is crazy. I was like, does anybody here understand how crazy Tori Spelling is?
You guys, we have also recorded both of these episodes on a Monday and a Friday. So this is like a very short amount of time to be consuming an extraordinary amount of Tori Spelling's thoughts. And I do not think I will emerge unscathed.
So this book, I think, comes out, 2 years? It came out in 2013. When did the last book come out?
I think that was 2009.
Okay. So this book comes out 4 years after the last one.
And it's dedicated to her 4 children, 1 stepson, husband, and a list of all of her pets.
And she says, my complete family, which is, as we know, not true. She has 1 more kid soon.
She has 1 more kid soon. And the other thing is that she gave most of these pets away.
Introduction, living a lie. She talks about what it's like to see yourself on the cover of Star. Tori's lies exposed. Oh, what could it be this time? Was I cheating on my husband? Had I been switched at birth? But no, when I opened the magazine, all I found was a rehash of Star's favorite story. Dean and I were breaking up. He was about to walk out on me, blah, blah, blah. Heard it all before. It's a story they've written so many times that I'm pretty sure their article list is on annual cycle. If it's March, Dean and I must be on the rocks.
It's funny and annoying to read that my love for Dean is a lie. My love for Dean is very real. Okay, so here's the problem is that
we're reading this in hindsight.
Yeah, I've listened to her podcast where she says that since the first child she had, so now we're 5 children in, but since that first pregnancy, she got pregnant immediately after they got married, she's wanted to divorce him.
Yeah, they've been unhappy this whole time. And actually, this book is about overcoming a really rocky year they had after their first 2 years.
That were also rocky. And also one thing she said in the podcast that I found very interesting, especially because this book had a chapter about how she doesn't work out. And then I think the last book, Mommy Wood, had a chapter about how hard it was for her to carry a buggy around.
Yes.
And in her podcast, she said one of the reasons she wasn't divorcing Dean is because she needed to be able to get the strollers in the car. I am like, wait, you really couldn't lift the strollers, I guess.
It's also so funny because she does have a full staff.
Yeah.
She has a baby nurse and a nanny. And at the beginning of this book, they had a live-in housekeeper. Just hire 1 man who lifts things.
Or you lift things. It's simply not that heavy. And when I was listening to the podcast and she was saying how hard it was to lift baby things around, for some reason I agreed that it might be very hard. But now that I think about it, I don't know. I think you can just try.
I wonder, though, if that's a metaphor for her fears of being a single parent. Because I do think the last book we just read, as you'll remember from Monday, was all about what a hapless mother she was and how she lives in constant fear and how when the baby would cry, she would kind of look at Dean and be like, baby's up. And how it made her jealous that because he was always sending the baby first and foremost, the baby liked Dean better. I mean, this is a woman who went to therapy because she thinks her 6-month-old son hates her. She was not prepared to lift up a baby physically or emotionally. She's also constantly pregnant. She's constantly ill. She's always getting migraines. She spends half of this book harrowingly in the hospital. Her children are always in the hospital. She is not an adult.
Okay, I will say I think that you're using metaphor when what we mean is excuse or mental gymnastics.
No, I don't think she knows as a metaphor, but
yes,
I think when you say, the heavy load of parenting, she's like, yeah, literally, it's so heavy to lift up the baby. She's so in her own mind about party planning and getting pregnant again and just being an insane person and hating Katie Holmes for some reason. She doesn't even know about the mental load of most mothers. She is a dad. So she's like, I'm always seeing these things and
it has been challenging, but not for the reasons Star Magazine thinks.
And she goes, but my reality show, Tori and Dean, is over after 6 seasons on Oxygen. It's a perfect time to go behind the scenes the way poor Star never could and fill in some of the missing pieces. This is so funny to me that she's like,
now that the reality show is over, let me tell
you what was really happening. And I'm like, wasn't that the point of the reality show?
No.
Nothing's
Claire.
the point of any. I can't wait for the book that tells you what was really happening behind the book, behind the reality show, behind her life. Which, by the way, Star was pretty spot on. These were unhappy people who kept having babies to avoid their unhappiness.
Wow.
Dean is obsessed with motorcycling into ditches just to try and kill himself to get out of this fucking family.
And it turns out all they needed to do was hire a lawyer.
It's been a challenging couple of years. We kept moving, and then we had kids, and then we had animals, and now we have 4 children, and now our family is complete. But at least I tell it like it is.
Okay, so now we jump to the first chapter where she finds out she is pregnant with her 3rd child. The test is conclusive. Everything was going swimmingly, so she's selling jewelry on HSN, and she starts to feel so nauseous. She's like, something must be going on. I'm not going to make it through this HSN presentation of jewelry. And how will the world go on if I can't finish my 20-minute segment on HSN hawking jewelry?
I'm going to throw up. What if I throw up on air? I'll never live it down. The soup embarrassing clip of the week. Here I come. One of the funny things about Tori's personality is that she lives in obsession that she calls fear of being paparazzi'd, even though, I mean, the way that she is throwing bones at these dogs. Like, she's like, please, 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 take a photo of me. Take a photo of me. I'm coming. Oh my God, Campbell's Soup is doing a collab with The Gutter. I'll lie down in a ditch. She's like, oh my God, Pampers for adults. I'll take a shit on national television. And then she's like, oh my God, I hope they don't see me before I lose my baby weight. The paparazzi is merciless. And I'm like, yes, but you call them. You're doing anything you can to get attention. We would love to forget you, Tori, but you won't let us.
That's the thing is that's so weird is she has this view of fame that it is this like inescapable, all-encompassing situation when I think that most people, once they get a taste of it, are like, oh, okay, you have to just keep living your life because like the lights, the cameras, the flashes, it kind of means nothing. You just have to exist alongside of it if this is a lifestyle you chose. And her being born into it, it's shocking that she like has not ever come to terms with what any of it actually means and that none of it's real. People are not genuinely head over heels interested in you. They're just trying to fill magazine pages.
And you will do anything.
And paparazzi are reaching a quota and you'll do something crazy in front of them because you're so anxious about how you're being perceived.
I mean, you're constantly doing press cycles to promote your own books, to promote whatever. So she's sick. Unfortunately, this fell into the category of normal. I'm always sick. Mehran, her gay best friend, now was back me too and rolled his eyes. Much as Mehran had in the past taken on my baby weight, he also has sympathetic headaches, stomach problems, and low energy. I know we're BFFs, but even my ailments aren't my own anymore. Okay, well then stop leaning on, like the way that she is so codependent and then being like, oh my God, can I have privacy?
I mean, anytime she feels stressed or scared or whatever, she calls upon like a sea of people to come tend to her. And then she's like, what? Why are you guys here?
So she's back on air. She pushes through. She's not able to meet with the HSN buyers. Bad look. But nevertheless, the show goes on. So then she gets home and she's like, okay, I think I have food poisoning from the plane. She does talk about puking in first class. Disgusting.
She didn't even want to say she was sick when they were filming the reality show because it wasn't like a good storyline for her to just have a tummy ache. So they just kind of keep on going. And then finally she asks Mehran to get her pregnancy tests discreetly. But of course he gets the wrong type. And lo and behold, she is pregnant.
This is funny because we already had this problem with Mehran in the last book. She's obsessed with making him go get her pregnancy test and then berating him.
Tori Spelling cannot be spotted buying pregnancy tests. What will the tabloids say?
I don't know, Tori. Does anybody fucking care?
She does get recognized places.
But I think she like really wants it.
First of all, yes, I think she wants it because you can tell. I mean, she does have that odd shaped head that you can never hide anywhere. But like, I do think that there is a way to be more incognito with your presence, and she does not choose it.
I mean, I saw Anna Delvey outside the passport office the other day, and it took me a minute to figure out who it was. The only thing that clued me in was her ankle monitor. But the way she was dressed, every single person that walked by her turned and looked and noticed her because she was dressed to be noticed. But still, nobody really cared enough to figure out who it was. Luckily, I'm sick in the head and know everything about everyone. So I said, I know who that blonde bitch is.
But the other thing I was going to say is the way that she exists in paranoia of every story reaching the tabloids, like the way she gets recognized inside of a CVS and she's like, well, now I can't function inside of this CVS because they'll tell everyone what I bought. And it's just like, maybe.
You are not the most famous person in Hollywood. She claims that she has never once in her life left her house without paparazzi on the curb. Could that be true? I mean, is she counting the cameras from her own reality show?
I'm wondering how often that's true because I know in Malibu, there is only like one store to shop at. So there's paparazzi there.
That's not what she said. She said outside of my own house on the curb of my home.
Yeah, but I wonder if her curb was
Like she lived in the mall?
Yeah.
Like they slept in aisle 9 of the CVS at the mall?
I'm just saying, like, if on every corner of that intersection, there could be a celebrity coming from any direction, they just like pick a corner to camp out at and they say whoever drives by first is the one you follow.
She's claiming they're staked outside of her home.
I guess, can you guys write in and say if there's ever been a time in your life where you felt like keenly aware of Tori Spelling and what she was up to? Like,
Besides
was there a
us.
time that she was so famous, or did she just invent this?
She's saying that she needed a gated community because she's never had paparazzi not on her driveway.
That's what I'm asking the people to call in and tell us if they've ever been keenly aware of Tori Spelling.
So then she asks her assistant to box up the pregnancy test so she could give it to Dean as a gift. And she's like, sorry, is that too personal? And her assistant goes, I've had to spoon your shit into a container to take the doctor. Nothing's too personal.
Shut up.
Actually, that's too personal. Tori, you shouldn't have asked her to do that. And Dana, the assistant, you shouldn't have done it.
What the fuck?
People have to have boundaries.
So then she surprises Dean with her pregnancy on camera as like a plot line for the TV show.
And she's like, if you think this is gross, don't worry. In our family, one of our favorite gags is taking photos of our shits and sending them to each other. We regularly share the size, color, and length of our shits. We beckon each other to the toilet and lean in to get a good look. Unfortunately, our kids have picked up on this habit too. There are photos on my phone of the most impressive McDermott family shits. Okay.
No.
So remember a few weeks ago, there was this headline that was like, Tori's children come to the bathroom with her. And we actually stepped in and defended.
Yeah.
We were like, I think what she said was basically like, sometimes she doesn't close the door so she can like yell at her young child. Clearly, we were wrong. There's something like really wrong with this family. They are obsessed with being disgusting.
They really are obsessed with being disgusting. And I think that there is such a difference between teaching children to not have shame about their bodies and being like gross.
There's just no reason to be constantly looking at each other's shits.
I agree with that.
And she takes such pride in it. And that's the thing about Tori Spelling. She'll be like, I know this is so gross. And I'm like, well, then don't say it. You don't have to say it.
And so then she talks about Dean getting surprised on camera that she was pregnant. The wife part of me was excited and eager to celebrate with my husband, and the producer in me was outside my body watching our exchange, noting his reaction, thinking about how well it would play on TV. And this is something that I think comes into this book constantly, even after the show got canceled, is I don't feel like she understands that her life is real life. Like she does not exist in the present under any circumstances.
Are you talking about later when she's like, I was so embarrassed not having a funny story to share with my friends. Normally I bring a funny story every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then all the moving and all the shopping, like the way she's in significant debt is because like nothing is real.
Yeah. And that's the truth of her. And actually why I do think she's the most interesting person in the world to have a memoir, because it is true that there are no consequences. So she never learns a lesson. So like she can live all of these Truman Show-esque, I'm in debt, I'm moving, oh no, my show got canceled. And there's never once an actual consequence because at the end of the day, her mom does bail her out.
And the other thing is the consequences that she's living inside of herself.
So then she talks about how now the new season of Tori and Dean is going to focus on her pregnancy and they're going to have to change everything last minute to make that the narrative arc. And she's like, it's not a big deal because last season we also had to change the narrative arc when we were fighting so badly that they could no longer conceal it. And we decided just to make it the premise of the show.
I always wanted the show to get real and it didn't get any realer than this.
So they're always having a fights. And I guess normally the crew would just leave the room. And because part of the show is that they were this happy couple. And at some point she's like, actually, is this so interesting? And they're like, yes. So then they go in to show that they actually fight nonstop every day. Mostly about the fact that he's addicted to motorcycle racing.
And like not spending time with the family because he's motorcycle racing. And then she like rehashes the storylines that they had to cut out in order to make the pregnancy the main focus of the season, which who cares? I'm sorry.
She's really got a knack for just like going on and on.
That's so true. As we read book 4, you're right. She really does have a knack for going on and on.
I think it's a skill because look at our Patreon. We're not so different.
We're not so different. But the thing is, we've never written entire books about how hard it is for us to talk to other people. It's such a reoccurring theme in her books that she's like, I didn't know what to make conversation about. And it's like, well, Tori, what did you write 4 books about? Do you think none of those stories are ripe for conversation?
Anyway, she doesn't want anybody to know she's pregnant. So she starts wearing a lot of Spanx. I don't even know what that has to do with anything, to be honest.
And then she tells all of her friends on camera that she's having a baby. And her friends are like kind of mad with good reason.
And then she's like pissed because once it comes out that she's pregnant, waiters never expect her to want alcohol. And she's like, I'm allowed to drink pregnant. It's my body. She's like, I went on an airplane. They didn't even offer me wine. So my friend had to get me 2. And then I went to a restaurant. They took away my wine goblet. So I had to take sips of my friends. And I'm like, okay, fight the fight, girl.
For the rest of the night, I took furtive sips out of my friends' glasses, seething. It was a cruel world where my secrets were not mine alone anymore, and a pregnant gal couldn't even get a drink. Oh, can I say the other thing is that she wants to drink while pregnant, but she can't ask for a wine glass because she doesn't want people to say Tori Spelling is drinking while pregnant. To that, I'll say you have to pick one or the other.
Like, entire chapters of this book are about her anxiety in the moment, but then she has no problem sharing in her book.
Yeah. And the other thing is her anxiety about health-related things. To have her then being like, anyway, the fact that they wouldn't let me drink wine while pregnant was so stupid. So the paparazzi are following her. She's the most famous girl in the world. It's a huge problem.
Normally, the paparazzi are quite respectful of the children and they don't follow her to the children's school. But for some reason, one day, this new guy follows her all the way. And in trying to lose him, she drives super dangerous, which is a recurring theme in her life where I'm like, if you feel this afraid, you have to stop specifically courting the paparazzi. But anyway, she tries to lose him and then she tries to like do something crazy at the preschool to get rid of the paparazzi. And she ends up like driving into a wall of a preschool.
She doesn't want them to get a photo of the name of the preschool. That's her big fear, is that her children will be photographed walking into a preschool and everyone will know where her kids go to school. So she ends up like knocking over this wall in the parking lot at the preschool because she's driving erratically. And it becomes like national news in this conversation about the safety of children and like what the ethics are of trailing a woman to her daughter's school, which obviously is unethical. And because it becomes national news, they start reporting.
Well, her first instinct is to tweet about it.
Yeah.
She goes, paparazzi chased me with the kids to school. I was trying to get away from him and had a pretty big accident, took down the whole wall of school. He then still got out to try to get pics. 10 school moms chased him away. What will it take? Someone dying for paparazzi to stop? Going to doctor now to check on baby. I think it's just shock. The tweet was a big mistake. I didn't do it to get attention. I did it to vent and prevent. But a media shitstorm ensued. So then, as Ashley said, it became this huge national thing.
It became this big news, and then they were reporting from the school. So she's like, great, now everyone knows where my kids go to school. Then at a red carpet event, they interviewed Julia Roberts about it.
It was such topical news that they asked her opinion on the matter. She said something like, yes, I think it's terrible. Julia Roberts knew about my car accident. She knew who I was. Mystic Pizza was my fave. Every cloud has a silver lining.
Tori, what the fuck? This is such a weird thing to do for her to be like obsessed with the way she's perceived and like celebrity. But like every now and then she'll be like, does the way I feel about Kate Winslet, is that how people feel about me?
No.
And it's like, well, no. But also the way she's like, oh my God, this was so scary and it sucked so bad. And I got into a major car accident and my car was destroyed and the school was destroyed. And now everyone knows where my kids go to school. But Julia Roberts is talking about me? That's kind of cool. She has to get a grip. She grew up famous.
So the next celebrity she's obsessed with is Kelly Wearstler, who's a designer. 2 years earlier, Dean and I had spent an ill-fated summer in Malibu when jury duty, travel, and my own neuroses got in the way of a relaxing vacation. This is where I think the genius of Tori Spelling comes into play. Because could you imagine reading that sentence and go, that sentence should be a book? Because the irony is jury duty didn't happen. Travel, most adults do not get to just take all of summer vacation to sit at home. And my own neuroses got in the way of a relaxing vacation. Most people don't get a full summer vacation at Malibu. The idea that what went wrong is a book, I mean, incredible, genius.
Okay, so then they decide, even after that ill-fated experience, to rent a house in Malibu again for the summer. And they pick the house that they picked because it is next to Kelly Wearstler's house, a famous interior designer that Tori has decided she must become best friends with.
She has this dream that they're going to become friends on the beach. And then Kelly will be like, what do you think about the next stone? And she'll be like, I think it's malachite or something. I don't know what she thought, but she thought that she was going to impress Kelly Wearstler with her interior design capabilities. And then they would become craft-based friends. I would say, Tori, your best in would be children.
Your best in would be children. The other thing is that Tori explains the inn that she renovated for Tori and Dean in Love and says that they turned the rose room into a Tiffany room that they made black and Tiffany blue.
Yeah, no. And she describes how she decorated a hospital. I mean, I think she has horrible taste. Everything she loves is turquoise and gold.
She describes her hospital room decor as, I think she said, Parisian dorm room.
meets Hollywood Regency. Everything's Hollywood Regency. Everything's like if Target did Hollywood Regency.
I just think for her and Kelly Wearstler to become design friends is not likely, but for them to become mom friends,
why not?
Why not?
Well, why not? Because Tori's a horrible mother.
So one day, after like a month in Malibu, Tori is on the balcony, and then from a neighboring balcony, she hears someone yelling Tori, and she scampers inside because she's too scared. And Dean is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You've been waiting for this moment. It's literally why we rented this godforsaken home. And so then she goes back outside, and Kelly is like, why don't you bring your kids over to hang out? And so she like changes clothes.
She goes, oh my gosh, was I dressed okay? I was wearing maternity jean shorts, a short-sleeved white peasant top from Forever 21 in size 10, and short fringed Uggs. If I was going to go through with this, I thought I should change it to something more worthy. But what if she'd seen what I was wearing and figured out I'd completely changed my clothes? That would be worse. Still, maybe she hadn't noticed my feet. I threw on a pair of Missoni ballet flats as a last-ditch effort. I was unfashionable and hugely pregnant, but I was doing this.
So then they go over to Kelly's house. Her kids and Kelly's kids start playing.
Can I tell you one thing I'm sure of is that Kelly Wearstler is not going to be impressed by your designer nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
She has like an incredible sense of personal style. She doesn't care that you just like threw a label on it.
No. The kids start playing. Tori tries to talk to Kelly, and they're talking about how everyone's about to go surfing. And Tori's like, great, they're about to leave. Should we leave? What should we do? And then one of the kids is hungry, and Kelly is like, I can get your kids food. We have food in this house. And so Tori's like following her kid around trying to catch every crumb. And Kelly Wearstler is like, kids crumb. Don't worry about it. And Tori's trying to think of what to talk to Kelly Wearstler about. And she goes, we stayed at a hotel you designed. It was cool. Tori cannot talk to people in a way that I find so shocking for someone who says so much.
Okay, the weird thing that Kelly did do was she invited the kids over when she herself was on the way out. So she's like, well, I'm going to go surf. So we're headed out. And then Tori's like, okay, kids, let's go. And the kids start having a tantrum meltdown. And everybody is like politely pretending it's not happening. And Tori's like, well, that made it worse. They were pretending that nothing was happening. I knew that that was the proper thing to do, but all I wanted was for someone to say, I feel you. My kids do this all the time.
Can I say a suspicion that I have, though? I do wonder if it took Tori like an hour to get next door because she was freaking out about her clothes.
That would make sense. She was like, come on over and we'll have like playtime for an hour. And then like an hour later, she came on over and Kelly was like, okay, well.
Especially because I think it was supposed to be a very casual, like hop on by and then we'll kind of get to know each other and then they can have play dates all summer. I bet Kelly was thinking that too. This wasn't supposed to be like the day.
So then Kelly left and they never saw each other again. Boy, was it the day. The only day.
There was no magic. She had no real interest in me. Our summer of bonding and subsequent lifelong friendship had begun and ended in one short, awkward hour. Kelly, if you still want my advice on stone trends, I'm standing by. She had no interest in your advice on stone trends. At best, you guys could have been mom friends, and the way you acted like a psycho and then your kids had a full-on meltdown freaked her out.
They have this huge house in Encino. They have a 6,000 square foot home in Encino. But then Tori reads an article.
This makes me so sad.
And in an article, this extremely attractive family had downsized from their 7,000 square foot home to a much smaller beach bungalow. The husband and wife talked about how moving to a smaller place brought the family closer. It was terrifying at first. They worried about how they'd survive with much less space. But now the beach house changed their whole lifestyle. They can tan and hang out at the beach and surf with their kids. The article inspired me. That could be us.
So she also has a fuck ton of farm animals at this point at their house in Encino. In the house, they have like goats and pigs and chickens.
And she admits, she's like, looking back, I guess I bought 17 farm animals because I didn't want to acknowledge that me and Dean were having a hard time. So keep in mind, their timeline is like they met while married to other people, had a secret affair, were married within a year, almost immediately started this TV show where they bought an inn, got pregnant right away again. They had 2 years of downtime where apparently they were fighting the whole time.
And she bought 17 farm animals.
And then in this book, they get pregnant 2 more times. Like, it's just, they're really like, if we just keep moving and buying animals and having babies, we'll never notice that we fucking hate each other. But let me tell you something I noticed.
You can't get one past Claire.
I was quite intuitive. With the way that Dean keeps getting into motorcycle accidents and almost dying, and Tori keeps saying, well, I'm not visiting you at the hospital. I hate you.
I can't visit you at the hospital. I have a meeting with my local witch to find out why I hate you.
Anyway, so they had what she thought of as a backyard farm. I think because she saw an article about that too. This is a woman who's the mother of 2, a stepmother to 1, in her 30s, married twice with like a very successful, relatively career. And the way that she has absolutely no sense of self, like she's the kind of person who's out there buying beef tallow because a 19-year-old girl said it cleared her acne. Like she really is the most susceptible, selfless idiot. And I say selfless as in she has no sense of self. Like there is no rod in Tori Spelling. There's no moral direction. There's nothing but like this vibration of anxiety and yearning to be someone else that is like compulsively pulled like a magnet to bad, expensive ideas.
And that's the thing, is it's all inherently actually quite selfish because of the way her actions negatively affect everyone around her in her personal pursuit of finding some sort of actualization that she will never find through stuff.
Okay, one of the animals they have is an anorexic snake who dies from anorexia. And she's like, apparently that happens a lot.
What?
She goes, I was surprised that Star didn't pick up on the story for a pets look like their owner's piece. Okay. So Coco the chicken lives in the house with the dogs. She's trained-ish. Totes Goats was smart, learned to use the doggy door in one day, but it's hard to house train goats because they don't really know when they're pooping. But since they only eat oats and hay, goats' poop is sweet smelling. And to dogs, it's like candy. So the dogs followed the goats around and cleaned up after her. This is when I was on drugs, crying, being like, no, don't tell me that in your house, not only are you shitting everywhere, but your fucking animals are shitting everywhere.
And then eating each other's shit.
You have staff, Tori. She has multiple people who live and work in her home. Why is shit such a problem? So she's like, clearly something was going on with me. All this animal expansion happened towards the end of the 5th season when me and Dean were going through a relationship strife. My beef was that Dean spent too much time biking or sitting on the computer looking at racing events and gears. Maybe I should have been grateful. At least his concept of porn was racing helmets and riding gloves. He wasn't doing horrible shit, but he was disconnected and quick to anger. My thing is that I think our obsession with physical cheating is a problem because we allow it to cloud like other horrible daily activities. Actually, it would be better for him to go out and fuck somebody one time than to completely neglect you and your 2 children.
Soon to be 5 children.
Soon to be. Oh yeah, and his son. He already has a difference. Like I really am like the way that women could be like, he's never been nice to me. He screams every day and he doesn't help out with the kids, but at least he's not kissing a slut. Yeah, you won. Jackpot. So anyway, she was like, well, what can I do to fix this? And she goes, I know, one more pig.
She buys a micro mini pig
on Craigslist. And she's like, it's so crazy because most of these pigs go for thousands of dollars, but I found one for $400. And she's like, I called up the lady and I got into a betting war and I swore that this pig would have the best life. I told them that we have a European king and 1,000 thread count sheets.
Because the pig has to sleep in her bed. Sorry.
Oh yeah, the pig is used to sleeping in a bed. I forgot. But then she goes, of course, it's the cotton staple length that matters, not the thread count, but I couldn't go into that with her. They get this dog or this pig, and already she's like, wait, why does it look twice as big as it did online? And she's like, oh, because it's fully done growing now. Take it. I'm moving to a pigless home. No pigs allowed. They told me.
And she's like, it's so suspicious that this woman said this pig is the love of her life, and yet she's moving to a pig-free home.
So day 1, Dean is like, okay, I got this pig a dog bed. And Tori is like, we promised that woman from Craigslist that he would sleep right in our bed. I can't believe that one of her big things is that they are always having sex. And then her other big thing is that they are never alone in their bed.
Okay, well, can I say this is the last time I think they shared a bed because according to Tori Spelling's podcast, there was an incident several years ago. So this is a podcast recorded in this year, 2024. She says several years ago, she adopted a pig that pissed their bed. And like she and Dean have slept in separate rooms basically ever since.
So that's the 4th year of their relationship. Because then for the rest of this book, she's always like, Dean loves having sleepover with our sons and our daughter loves sleeping with me. And I was like, okay, so you're in separate rooms.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the night, a noise woke me out of my dead sleep. I had no idea what it was, but it sounded like the room was flooding. I sat up in bed. Hank was no longer tucked between me and Dean. He was gone. I stood up and crouched forward. Hank! In the dark, I couldn't see him, but I headed towards the sound of the gushing water. There he was, facing the corner, pissing. Only then did I remember the owner had warned me that pigs like to pee in the corners of rooms. What kind of warning is that? I wanted to say, Hank, stop. He needed to be trained not to do this. But I was afraid that if I interrupted him, he'd turn and spray pee everywhere. Instead, I stood, watching silently as my not-so-micro-mini pig peed on and on. He must have peed for 5 minutes. By the time he was done, there was a fully soaked circle 2 feet in diameter, in the corner of our plush cream wall-to-wall carpeting. When Hank was done, it wasn't a job for a few paper towels. It was a job for several long staple Egyptian cotton sheets. And then she goes, oh, I realized then that Hank was not a micro mini, if such a thing exists. He wasn't even mini. He wasn't even a potbelly. He was a full-on slaughterhouse pig who would grow to be well over 200 pounds.
So they have this pig and these animals and a dream of living a simple farm life in Malibu. And she says, Hank would do better on the farm. Maybe house hunting was for me. Maybe it was a bit of a rush, but I think I did it for Hank.
So they find this incredible house in Malibu and they put an offer on it right away. And then she goes on to describe for 3 pages the whole house and everything. And then she goes, anyway, something went wrong and it fell out of escrow. So we had to find a new house. I'm like, Tori, why did you even bring that up?
So then they find this other house and they've listed their Encino house. They find this other house that they have to rush to get immediately because it fell out of escrow with someone else. And there was an issue. And then they're like, don't even inspect it because it's already been inspected. Don't worry. The inspection's done. We checked ourselves and it looks good. And she's like, yes. Makes sense.
And then she goes, it was so stressful though, because we didn't have any money because we put our Encino house on the market and no one had bought it yet. So we couldn't even afford the down payment. But it was so imperative that they move this fucking minute.
So they had to ask her mom for money. We don't have insight on, I don't remember her and her mom getting along again, but apparently she's talking to her mom again. They ask for money for the down payment on the farmhouse.
And her mom fronts it to her and with the assumption that she'll get paid back when the Encino house sale goes through. And then she goes, the one problem, it only had 3 bedrooms. So that's one for me and Dean, one for Liam and Stella, and then one for Hattie and Patsy, the baby and the baby nurse. And she goes, but the one problem is,
where will Jack, Dean's other son, sleep?
And they go, oh, there's a trailer outside. Perfect. Do you remember that in the last book, she was like, Jack hates me and I don't know why. Anyway, when he comes over, he sleeps in the yard.
With the pigs and the goats.
And isn't it interesting? I never say a word about his bitch mother, who apparently thinks I'm ugly. Anyway, Hank's in my bed. Our son is outside.
Dude, this family is so freaky deaky.
Imagine going to a house where a goat gets to go inside and you don't. And the goat isn't even potty trained.
More potty trained than the pig, at least. At least the goat has a cleanup crew.
But Jack, you're in the driveway, bitch.
Okay, so then, oh my God, this is disgusting. I can't believe she wrote this. Her kids like to sleep on the floor next to her and Dean's bed, and she would scooch to the end of the bed to get out because if she went next to the bed, she would step on her children who were sleeping on the floor next to the bed. But anyway, she is too pregnant to scooch to the end of the bed, so she's trying to step over her kids, and her water breaks all over her toddler who is sleeping on the floor.
Stella slept on blissfully, ignorant of her unfortunate baptism.
Oh, gross.
And so she had seen an episode of the Rachel Zoe Project.
Where Rachel Zoe gets dolled up before going to the hospital to give birth.
And it's funny because she's sitting here going, as someone who's done reality TV, I know a lot of scenes like this are actually added in later and fake and they're setups and they're not real and you have to go back and refilm. But she goes, but I couldn't be sure that she hadn't.
So she puts on makeup.
She goes, think about it, people. What's the likelihood that Rachel Zoe was actually in labor when her husband filmed that scene? Hard to say. I was a reality star watching a reality star, knowing she might have staged the scenario, but live by the sword, die by the sword. I started putting on makeup thinking I'm going to do it right this time. I mean, that's how insane this woman is. 3rd child, and she's still am I good enough for a reality show that I know is fake?
Am I like Rachel Zoe? Okay, actually, the craziest thing happens on the next page. This was the most shocking line I've ever read in any book, let alone a Tori Spelling book. I can't believe she printed this. Okay, so first of all, the baby is born. It's a girl, not a boy. And they're like, fuck, what do we even name it? We don't even know girls. We don't like girls. We don't think about girls. What could we possibly name a girl?
Oh, okay. I actually know exactly what you're going to say.
So they just Google baby names, old-fashioned baby names, and they like the name Hattie. And then they're thinking about the name Hattie. And Patsy, the baby nurse, goes, oh, the most famous Hattie is Academy Award-winning African-American actress Hattie McDaniel, who won an Academy Award for Gone with the Wind. Margaret, who I call Nanny, the woman who basically raised Tori, was also Black. They named her Hattie Margaret. She's white on the outside, but she's Black on the inside, Patsy said. I smiled when she said that. Having grown up with Nanny, watching the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son eating Southern food that she grew up with and spending summers running around under sprinklers in her communities in Crenshaw, I've always said the same thing about myself.
Tori Spelling, I don't think they want you.
What are you... Okay.
You are spiritually, physically, and energetically, emotionally, truly the most white girl bitch I've ever met.
I am aghast. I am agog. I can't believe the nerve.
It just isn't even true.
It just is not even close to true. The way she spends the rest of the book being like, my heart was in Malibu, but my dreams were in a
the
gated
rest of the book
estate.
is about how hard it is to want a small farm life, but love amenities.
The rest of the book is about how hard it is to go on vacation and be like, why aren't we at the Ritz?
So then one of the problems is that she had told the reality crew that they could film her giving birth. And at the last minute, she changed her mind, which I understand. And this is the problem with Tori, is I'm like, yeah, Tori, it is crazy to film your birth. That is a private moment. That is a vulnerable moment. That is a moment that transcends reality TV. But you're the ones who specifically told them this should be the ending of the season. And she's like, I did this thing where I texted them on my way to the hospital so that they wouldn't have time to get there. I can't believe they made it. And then she's like, I can't believe they just stood around in the hospital room all day. I don't think I ever told them to leave, but didn't they get the picture?
No, they didn't.
It was remarkable that nothing had ever felt intrusive before. Maybe they were crossing more boundaries, or maybe I was changing, but I think of that day, Hattie's birthday, as the beginning of the end of the chapter of Tori and Dean. So then she didn't have any clothes for Hattie because God forbid Hattie wear blue, I guess. And so her mom went home and returned everything and got her all new girl clothes, which is very cute.
I love that a girl has to wear pink.
And then she made sure that Hattie's room in Malibu would be full on pink.
So they move into this new house in Malibu.
The next week.
You know how the perfect time to move is when you've got a 1-week-old baby.
And for some reason, Dean keeps going by himself to build chicken coops. And I'm like, surely that is not the most important thing for the father of 2 children and a newborn to be doing.
They also replaced the floor with splinter floor.
Yeah, she hates that they have bamboo floor. She wants reclaimed wood floor. And she's like, it never even occurred to me that reclaimed barn wood floor would have just so many splinters. She's like, I thought raw wood was the
cutest. The cutest,
she's like,
smoothest.
It's crazy because even then when we implemented a rule that nobody could be barefoot in the home, the kids kept touching the floor with their hands. I was like, of course. They were 2 and 3 and baby. Their hands are so close to the floor at all times. Their hands graze the floor.
A little thing called crawling happens.
And then it turns out all these things are wrong with this house that they didn't inspect. It has this cactus called a jumping cactus
that sprays cactus needles at you if you get close to it.
And then the AC breaks, the refrigerator breaks, the stove breaks, and they find out how much luxury appliances are. And they're like, oh my God, our old house just came with the Viking refrigerators. We didn't know that it would be $9,000. She's like, we can't afford that. So we picked one thing to start with, and it was all new wood floors. Because, a family does not need a refrigerator or a stove. What they need is
splinter floors. The kids were also really sad that they had to share a room, especially coming from this 6,000-foot Encino house with Viking appliances.
They also were really excited to tear down all the raw forestation of Malibu so they could build their little farm. And they were told it would cost $100,000 to take it down. And she's like, okay, would somebody do it in steps? And they're like, no. And then she's like, we don't even have a pool. She's like, how are we going to have children with no pool? Dean's like, we get an above ground one. And she's like, I don't want an above ground pool.
So within 6 months, they're like, we have to leave Malibu.
Well, part of the reason we'd moved was for the amazing Point Doom schools, but it was the middle of Liam's last year at his preschool, and I wanted him to graduate with the rest of his class. Also, Stella couldn't get into any daycares in their area, so they ended up driving 45 minutes to their old schools every single day, both ways.
Because they were also in such a rush to sell their house in Encino, they lost a fuck ton of money.
Yeah. At first, she just keeps saying for a huge loss, And then they end up selling this house for a $200,000 loss. And if you're like, well, if that's not huge, then what is huge? Later, she admits that they had lost $1 million on
house moving.
In 1 year, they lost $1 million.
And when they lived in Encino, they had paid off their house.
But what is that? I don't believe that because
I guess I don't believe it, but she says they had a comfortable savings account and they were living in a nice home for a large family. I guess maybe they had the money to be paying the mortgage or something.
Maybe they did. Maybe they bought it cash, but I feel like that's not smart.
No.
Since when has she been smart?
Anyway, so then she goes to Pasadena for a press event and she gets such a bad migraine. She can't even go to the press event and she feels so bad because, I don't know, she's Tori, the face of the network. It turns out she's pregnant again.
Also, she has her mom over for Thanksgiving and they're so nervous. It's so chaotic. It's in their tiny little Malibu home. They're eating at a table that's too small. But her mom sends her an email the next day saying, let me tell you how great it was. They're living their dream, their own green acres. A pig greeted me at the door. They cooked a fabulous dinner. She was being supportive of me in her own way. That was enough for me. I will say that was enough for me. What else did you want her to say?
She was just being supportive
of your like harebrained schemes. I'm team Candy. I can't wait to read it for the Patreon.
Me too.
So they move in October, right?
Yeah.
Their thing is they always take a month and rent a giant mansion in Lake Arrowhead. So they move in October, like mid to late October. And then by December, they're spending a month out at Lake Arrowhead.
And then in like January or February, she's filming a movie in Utah for a month. They have lived there for like 6 weeks. She has to go to Pasadena for a press event for Oxygen Network. And she has such a bad migraine, she can't even go to the event. And she's just laying upstairs. And then she decides she has to go to the ER. So she goes to the ER. And they're like, we can't treat you with pain medication because you're pregnant.
She got pregnant 1 month after giving birth.
You're not supposed to have sex.
She says her husband's bad at math.
I will say, she talks earlier about how there was like a press headline that Dean is a sex addict, and she does nothing to dispel those rumors.
Amen.
So she says they weren't fitting in Malibu. Now she was pregnant with another baby. They had no space. Malibu sucks. Oh, people get really mad that they're filming a reality show there.
Do you guys remember last episode where she hated all her neighbors? She hates all her neighbors again. It's so weird the way that unfortunately everybody but Tori Spelling is a bad neighbor.
Yeah, the problem is she just doesn't fit in anywhere. And they're mean to her.
Aside from the space, we weren't exactly fitting into the community. I couldn't figure out the Malibu women. They wore Uggs and sweatpants with Cartier bracelets and diamond-faced Rolexes. They wore 6-carat engagement rings alongside woven friendship bracelets they made with their kids. They were super casual, their professionally sun-kissed hair thrown up in messy buns as if they didn't care. Their cozy, washed a million times, perfectly worn sweatshirts were from Free City and cost $200.
I guess the problem is they are chill but rich. And that is something that Tori's never experienced before because she's not rich or chill.
And it is funny. She's like, I moved to Malibu to have this expensive laid-back lifestyle, and all the women here are so expensive and laid back. How am I supposed to fucking figure that out?
She also, throughout this book, spends so much time being like, you don't understand how hard it is to be me. I was raised so rich.
So after feeling so bad that her neighbor comes over and is like, hey, please keep your camera crew out of here. We're not like that here. We're very like low key. She's so offended. She's like, how fucking dare he?
She goes, I don't even want to go to your stupid fucking Christmas party.
So she's telling her friend Madison from the show Selling LA or whatever that she hates Malibu. And he goes, well, you just have to meet the right people. Let me introduce you. So he sends her to this workout class where apparently everybody hangs out. And she's like, workout class? I don't want to work out. I hate working out. And she goes and she's so dismissive of the fact that the teacher's like, oh, I think you'd like Alicia. She's also a mom. She goes, Alicia? Who's Alicia? Alicia is Pink, Alicia Moore. And she's like, oh, okay, Pink.
I didn't know Pink. I didn't have many celebrity friends. I'm friends with Jenny from the West Side. But the teacher clearly thought my best options for new friends were other celebrities. Well, Tori, that's because you have spent now 3 books saying that you like don't know how to talk to regular people because they all have these insane expectations of you, the Tori Spelling. And then also when you meet famous people, you act like a psycho because you're like, why aren't we best friends immediately? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk to people. The problem is just that she can't talk to humans.
I also do think in Malibu, she's like, oh, so what? You think I could just be friends with other celebrities? I'm like, I do think at this very expensive elite workout class for celebrities, most of the clientele is celebrity.
Yeah.
Imagine if I went to like an agency and I was like, do you have any clients you could set me up with? And then I was like, oh, okay. So I get it. You think I'm only friends with celebrities. And then she's also like, I hated it because I guess the only thing she does with her kids is shop. She's like, the thing me and my kids love to do is shop. Her kids are 3 and 5. And she's like, but there's only one mall in Malibu and that's where all the paparazzi hangs out. And she's like, but I can't even afford the things there. I couldn't afford to shop there all the time anyway. And because there was only one area to shop, it was riddled with paparazzi. There was nothing for our family to do. We were pretty much isolated at home. Imagine going to Malibu
and being like, there's nothing to do here.
Farmland on the beach and being like, what are kids supposed to do here but shop?
They end up spending every single weekend going back to the valley to just walk around the mall. Sometimes I think I got lost in the madness of a reality show. The producer and me thought, what a great story. All of us crowded in a small house, roughing it until we have the money to expand.
So then she's like, fuck, plus now we're already too small in here. And now we're going to have a 4th baby. Plus, like Jack's already in the trailer. The 4th baby is going to go where? In the sink? I don't know.
So Jack sleeps in the trailer one time and then comes in and is like, that was too scary. So then every time he comes to town for the weekend, they have to put him on a cot in Liam and Stella's room. So they have 3 kids in one room, 1 kid in the other room with the baby nurse, and then Tori and Dean in the 3rd room.
This time, it wasn't an exciting prospect. It was an overwhelming problem. We'd bought the house in Malibu before we sold our house in Encino. We'd ended up selling Encino at a loss, a big loss. We couldn't afford to buy another house.
So now they have to rent.
Whenever I panic about money, I spring into action. So we found out I was pregnant the first week of January. I landed 2 jobs. One was the Christmas TV movie for ABC Family called The Mistletones. And the other was that she would be the host of Craft Wars for TLC. So she goes and does them back to back. She's like very offended that she's not the star of Mistletones.
But she does find out that she's supposed to sing in this movie. So they send her to a voice coach, Eric Vitro. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, from Monopoly with Ariana Grande.
Yeah, that's the only reason I know who that is.
So she goes in and she's waiting them outside. I heard his prior appointment working with him in the other room. It was some actress singing horribly off key. I heard him say, okay, that's great. That made me feel better. I heard him say goodbye and then the actress walked out of the room. It was Katie Holmes.
I'd met Katie Holmes years ago in her Dawson's Creek days when I was still on 90210. A friend of mine at the time did a movie with her. They had gone out drinking. They drank from a fishbowl. She was like, it was so gross to drink from a fishbowl, but the alcohol kills everybody's germs.
So then she walks out. Hi, how are you? She said. I said, oh, hi. I didn't know whether we should hug or shake hands, but the signal from her was immediately clear. Don't even come close. I instantly got nervous. We clearly weren't going to catch up on the last 10 years. And we certainly weren't going to talk about her husband, Tom Cruise. When all else fails, I always pull out the mommy card. It breaks the tension. Your daughter is adorable. I have kids around the same age. Oh, do you? She said. Then I was annoyed. Come on. Okay. I know you're busy, but you're in the public eye. Don't tell me you don't follow tabloids. Don't tell me that you don't know anything about other celebrities and their kids. I just actually genuinely believe that Katie Holmes does not read The Inquirer and actually specifically stays away from that stuff. And also, you're not a celebrity. She's married to Tom fucking Cruise at this point. She's trapped in a cult. She has bigger problems than keeping tabs on your godforsaken life.
She says, oh, congratulations. And we just stood there. Well, it was good to see you.
She was just plastic in a perfectly polite way.
I felt sad for her. Those paparazzi photos, the ones where she looks like she's miserable but putting on a happy face, that's what she looked like in person. Not long after that encounter, the news would break that she and Tom had split up. Okay, so you met this girl as she's trying to escape her evil cult leader husband?
And you know that he's a cult leader. She also says, I know you're not a robot because you can't sing for shit.
Okay, so my theory for why she hates Katie Holmes is this, that they met when they were both
teen stars and Katie Holmes was raised to superdom.
Yes, they were both teen stars on the same type of teen network show with the same level of teen fame. And then Katie Holmes became, she was in the Batman. She was in things. People revered her.
She also was considered the face. We've seen this in other memoirs. Busy Phillips was so jealous of the way that they were all Katie Holmes, she's just so pretty. She has the face.
Yeah.
And Lord knows that I'm sure Tori was hearing the opposite.
Exactly. And then they both got married. And Katie's husband was this all-powerful cult leader. And Tori picked an absolute dud who wanted to die on a motorcycle.
Well, after her first dud.
After her first stud, who's even that,
Unknowable. So then she meets Eric Vitro and she's so fucking insane. It turns out the song she's supposed to sing is All I Want for Christmas Is You, which is really hard. And she keeps being I can't do it. I don't have the air. And he goes, that's okay. Let me get you some tea. She goes, let's practice scales. And she goes, that was terrible. And she's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And so he goes to get her this tea. And then I guess he takes a phone call. So he forgets to make it for her and he comes back. And she's too insecure to tell him that he didn't bring her tea.
And then there's tea there that was Katie Holmes's tea. And he thinks it's her tea because he forgets that he didn't get her tea. And he is like, well, take a sip of your tea. And she doesn't want to say, that's not my tea. You never got me tea. And so then she drinks Katie Holmes's tea and keeps calling it disgusting Katie Holmes backwash.
I don't know. You're the weird adult who couldn't just say, oh, you never got it for me. It's so weird that she's in her head this much. It turns out they only had one session. And he's like, don't worry, they're going to bring in another recording artist to just kind of back up your vocals. And then she's deeply offended that it ends up being mostly the other person's vocals. But how on earth was Tori Spelling supposed to learn how to sing All I Want for Christmas Is You?
Yeah, when she wouldn't even try.
Anyway, so she gets a massage on the table and starts bleeding a lot and gets very nervous. Rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
And she's like, is there anything I should be doing? And they're like, no, you're fine. So she goes to work for Craft Wars where she's standing on her feet constantly and dancing for mistletones and whatever and not telling anyone she's pregnant because she's embarrassed to admit she got pregnant so quickly. Also, she has this weird thing where she's the paparazzi can't know. And I'm like, well, then don't tell them.
And then she can't back out of either of these projects because she has no money because she just lost $1 million moving 18 times in 5 minutes.
So she has this bleeding and she won't go to the ER in Utah because she doesn't trust any other doctor but her own. I spent the month in Utah convinced I had a dead baby inside of me. That's fucked up, Tori. You could literally die if that was true.
So then they find a new house in a place called Westlake Village that is so far out of their budget.
They have a business manager who keeps being like, your budget is half of this. You just lost $1 million moving twice in a year. You cannot spend a lot on rent, but they get it anyway.
Yeah.
They get a 7,000 square foot mansion in a Westlake gated community. So then she gets into when she did Craft Wars and how much she hates Martha Stewart.
Yeah. And also kind of Craft Wars. The show was not what she wanted it to be. It was actually like a Cupcake Wars ripoff. I was starting to think of myself as a kind of modern, imperfect, girlfriendy, and fashion-forward Martha Stewart.
Fashion forward. Who gave her this idea that she is like an icon of fashion?
I don't know.
Because they reference it in the last book too. And I'm like, no.
They're always like, Tori, people are going to expect you to show up with a look.
I think we know that she spends a lot of money on clothes, but at this point, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? But also as someone who like is known for spending a lot of money on clothes, I feel like notoriously
looks like shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she meets Martha Stewart and she doesn't have a good time. Basically, she goes. Martha's very like intense on set. She's nice when they're filming. And then when the cameras go off, she's all about getting it to run smoothly. You could imagine that a woman with a successful, financially solvent business would be business-like.
She gets so upset because Martha Stewart, they're doing this art project on air and then Tori doesn't have all the supplies she needs. And Martha kind of scolds one of the PAs. It wasn't scolding, but
there was a tone of expectation.
She was stern.
Anyway, and then she's like, can I take a photo with you? And she said, sure, but it has to look organic. So they had to pretend to be doing something.
I want to go back to the stern tone.
Yeah.
Tori couldn't even figure out how to tell her voice teacher that she didn't want to drink Katie Holmes's leftover tea. Like, how is she running things?
So then she's back on Mistletones and Cupcake Wars where she's pretending not to be pregnant. And everybody's like, well, why would you be pregnant? You're just like losing the baby weight. You had a baby 2 or 3 months ago. And she's like, yeah, who would be pregnant already? And then she tells this story for no reason. Around this time, Dean and I broke the news to Stella and Liam. And then she just like goes into this story about Liam. And I'm like, why did you tell us this has nothing to do with anything? Basically,
oh, I hate this story.
Liam had taken a bath with Hattie when she was 3 months old and had diaper rash. So some mom at their school asked Liam, how do you like having a little sister? And Liam says, I like her, but I don't like when her pussy gets red. The mom looked up at me shocked. I shrugged and just said, vagina's so clinical. Liam and I were halfway to the car, but I glanced back and saw that the look of shock hadn't faded. I ran back to her just to clarify she had diaper rash, but we used some triple paste. Totally under control now. Why? I feel like it is weird to call your little daughter's vagina pussy.
Stop saying that. It is weird.
She's like, what's so wrong about it? We call a little boy's penis his pee-pee. And I'm like, yeah, but I've never heard someone say like, give me that pee-pee in a porn. And that's why it's different. Who owns that pee-pee?
Stop saying that.
If you don't know the difference between pee-pee and pussy.
Ew. She was on Mistletones for most of the prep for Craft Wars. So she like didn't get that much creative input. And it's upsetting because she feels like the show is actually pretty generic.
So anyway, back to a new house. So they sold their Encino house from what I'm guessing was like $750,000 of a loss. And then they'd sunk a lot of money into the Malibu house, buying all new appliances. I thought she said she couldn't afford those appliances.
I don't know.
They got the new floors.
I don't think not being able to afford anything has ever stopped her, but she does like to say that she can't afford stuff. And back to her being a fashion icon. The thing is, she's aware that high price points are things she can't afford, but she still likes buying stuff. And overall, I think she ends up spending a fuck ton of money at like less expensive stores and on less expensive products that like would be the same amount as if she had just bought expensive things. Like she loves to buy a sweater from JCPenney's in every color, but if she had just like gone to Neiman Marcus and bought one sweater, she doesn't have to sit there and be like, oh, I can't afford Neiman Marcus. You could, but you can only get one.
She says she sold that house eventually for $200,000 less than they paid, which is so bad because there's also like taxes when you buy a house. There's also like fees, and then also
they redid the floors
and did all new appliances. So they lost like over $200K. Plus they sold the Encino house for a huge, I don't know. Anyway. So they get this Westlake Village house in a gated community. She loves the privacy. And she's like, it was just so embarrassing though, because everybody assumed we could afford it, but we couldn't. Like one mom said, are you going to join the local golf course? And it's $40K just to join. We can't afford it.
We'd moved from a farmhouse with no house to a house with no farm. They had to give away most of their livestock because they're renting this apartment or this house. The owners are like, you can't have farm animals here.
Luckily, Patrick Dempsey's wife has a farm, so they take everything.
Yeah, even Hank.
The pig.
He wasn't the pig of my dreams. All he cared about was food. If you didn't have food, he wasn't interested.
I wonder what the pig of Tori's dreams is.
Not Dean, that's for sure. So then when she's filming Craft Wars, she has one episode to go and she has another major bleed.
Okay, and so she's freaking out. She's laying down, but she's always saying things like, I got into bed and put a pillow under my feet. While I waited to hear from him, I kept my hand on my woodle. As if to hold in the baby.
Why doesn't she just use that word more?
Isn't it funny that I've never heard the word woodle before, but you know.
You know what she means. Okay, so she can't go back to work for the last day of Craft Wars, and they end up just shooting it without her. When the show aired, no one knew about my illness. The viewers saw me hosting every week, and then the final week, I just wasn't there. There was no explanation or fanfare for the finale. They aired it back to back with another episode. It was a sad whimper of an ending.
She was also supposed to host some event, and luckily Brooke Burke steps in for her and tweets, "Hi, Tori and Dean. I hope you feel better. In the spirit of friendship, I was happy to be there for you today, and we all missed you." And she's like, why did she do that?
Why did she tweet at me? Why didn't she text me?
Which is like true, but also I'm sure it had something to do with like covering for the brand that had been saying Tori Spelling would be there, and then randomly Brooke Burke was there.
Also, do they know each other? So luckily, while Tori Spelling is in the hospital, her friend Amy is also in the hospital having a baby. And so she has Amy's family to hang out with. And then Amy is kind of like taking care of her while Amy is like having an emergency C-section. But like Tori comes first. Tori cries because she misses Amy's family and Amy has to like comfort her.
So she ends up being put on bed rest, which actually sounds brutal because they kept sending her home after she was bleeding. Then they finally realized her placenta was too low or something. So she's on like pretty severe bed rest. She ends up spending 55 days in the hospital, which is really tough. And, you know, she has three young children at home, one newborn that she's not able to bond with. Westlake is like a full hour away from the hospital. So she doesn't even get to see them more than 2 days a week. It is like a really shitty situation.
Yeah, I do feel really bad for her.
She decorates her room in what sounds like the worst decorations of all time.
Yeah, she has like turquoise stick-on wallpaper. She gets to stay in this room that Julia Roberts once stayed in, allegedly. The nurse is like, people like Julia Roberts stay there. And she's like, so Julia Roberts. And the nurse is like, sort of. And so she has to have that room. My room looked like a girly dorm room meets a Parisian apartment. Whenever someone visits her in the hospital, her contractions increase, whether it's Mayron, her mom, whatever. The doctors are like, you have to be careful around people. And I do feel like she just can't relax in any human-to-human interaction.
Yeah, she keeps getting this Reiki treatment done that only forces her contractions to go faster. And the doctor's like, if you keep doing it, though, you could have an early... At this point, she's like sub 24 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
So it's like really important that she doesn't go into labor. And yet she keeps bringing these people in that are upping her contractions. It's very dangerous. I don't think she knew how dangerous it was. And she keeps bleeding out and having, I don't know. It's like really horrible. And her poor children miss her and they're freaked out.
Do you know what the Reiki healer tells her, though? The baby that she's currently having was meant to be Hattie's twin.
Remember when the Reiki healer had been like, no, Hattie's a boy, and then she was born a girl? It turns out she wasn't wrong.
Yeah, Hattie was supposed to be boy-girl twins, but the boy missed the portal into Earth. And so that's why she got pregnant again so quick, is because this baby that was supposed to have been born already jumped on the first opportunity. So she's on bed rest. I was hearing words of encouragement. It felt like my positivity had paid off. Oh, she also gets to go to the gift shop, which is exciting for her. But Dean isn't that excited. And she's like, what the fuck, Dean? It's shopping.
She really is crazy. She also is very grateful for her Reiki healer because she was so nervous about the future. And her Reiki healer gave her this whole new perspective of like, well, what if you thought about the moment?
She gets a call while she's on bed rest that Tori and Dean has been canceled after 6 seasons. She hears it from her manager, not even the network. And she's like, the network that I had worked so closely with for years and years and years suddenly isn't even going to tell me to my fucking face. And it's just like, yeah, I don't think that that's how showbiz works.
I do think they could have called. I mean,
I think they could have called her, but the way
someone from the production company, they had been there when she gave birth. They had seen her whoopee cho-cha or whatever spit out a bing bang. The least they could tell her is you're unemployed now.
But I wonder how many people from production knew already.
She then goes through all of the great scenes of this show that got cut, which is like a horrible waste of space in a book. To tell me everything that they didn't think was interesting enough for your reality TV show that was canceled for not being interesting enough One of the scenes she said that didn't make it into air was when we suddenly heard dogs barking and looked out the window to see the production assistant run past the window, arms flailing, screaming in real fear. Chasing him were all 4 of our dogs on the attack. He hurled himself over a fence. He wasn't badly injured, but the dogs had ripped holes in his jeans in a not fashionable way. It was a very scary, dramatic, and very real moment, but we couldn't include it as part of our story because he was part of the production crew, and even though we'd become friendly with him, he wasn't a character on the show. That is actually a horrible scene for you. You should thank your lucky dogs that they didn't put your attack dogs on TV. Why are you telling us this? That's not a funny story.
No, it's very scary. At one point, like a schizophrenic woman approaches her at a farmer's market and she's like, that scene was hilarious.
I mean, her vagina falls out of her Spanx and she's like, why'd they cut that? And then she talks about the most important fake of all is that they thought in the 5th season where the whole plot line was about how Tori and Dean's relationship is falling apart, wouldn't it be nice to wrap it up with an early vow renewal? And she's like, I'd planned to do it for our 5th anniversary and I didn't like doing it for our 4th anniversary specifically because we weren't in a good place, but I did it anyway. And she keeps being like, there was all these signs that it was actually a good thing, but then there was equal signs that it was a bad thing.
Yeah, so she gets into where their relationship was at the time. They had been fighting a lot over his motorcycle racing because he keeps hurting himself.
Also, he's spending a lot of time racing and not a lot of time with their now 4 children.
Yeah. They were fighting a lot over how much time he was spending motorcycle racing. And he like broke his collarbone at one point. He was hurting himself kind of a lot. And she was like, I need you to not be dead. And also change that diaper.
Which is weird because in the last book, the problem was that he was too present of a father and it made her jealous.
Yeah, but this is the book that's about what she couldn't share in the book and the show.
I think child 1, he was happy to participate. And then child 2, he was probably happy to participate. But at this point, 4 years later, he was over it.
Yeah.
So she has this story about when she's trying to renew these vows and she's looking for signs that it's a good thing to do early, even though they're in such a bad place. And they meet this old, cute couple at a diner who reminds them so much of themselves. And
oh, wait, they're also fighting because one of Dean's motorcycle friends had used their computer and stolen a sex tape off of it.
The motorcycle did it.
Yeah. Okay, so then they meet this cute couple.
And they're so cute and they're talking to them. They own this diner and they're like, this is how you make a marriage work. We're so in love. I love her every day. And she's like, oh my God, it gives me hope that we're going to make it because like, look at this couple. They're so sweet and they're just like us. So they bring the cameras back the next day to recreate the scene. And in front of the cameras, the man gets like really nervous and insane and starts being insanely racist and talking about all the people he killed during World War II. And then his wife is so upset trying to calm him down that she starts crying and he keeps telling her to shut up. And then she's like, I guess this was a bad sign that my relationship really wasn't meant to last.
I guess us in 70 years is quite disastrous. Dean is also upset because she's like, I don't want you motorcycle racing. I think it takes up too much time from the family and I'm scared that it's too dangerous. And he's like, I'm scared that you don't like motorcycle racing with me. So he makes her go on a motorcycle trip with him. And then he like re-proposes at the end of it. The scenes bothered me because the emotion behind them was conflicted. But I saw the proposal scene in the editing room and I have to say that scene rocked.
So basically she's saying, you know, it looked romantic, but in real life, all I thought about was the production. And you're like, okay. It's so weird because she keeps being like, there's all these really bad signs that me and Dean are supposed to break up. And a psychic told me that he'd just be my baby daddy and we wouldn't be together. Anyway, and I'm like, oh my God, is there a resolution to that?
No, because she starts and ends this book by saying, and the tabloids will say that we're not in love and they're lying. We don't spend time together and I regret marrying him twice.
So anyway, he goes out racing one day and she gets a call from his friend and he's like, by the way, he's in the hospital. Do you want to come? And she's like, no. And he keeps being like, I really think you should come. They're looking at his back. And she's like, no. And then finally, he's like, I insist you come visit your husband in the hospital. So she gets out there and she's like, where is he? And they're like, in the ICU. His lung was punctured. So then he apologizes to her and she's like, I don't care.
He says, I'll never ride again. And then like immediately was like, I didn't say that.
Anyway, she ends up having a horrible time
with this pregnancy.
And I guess this is pre-4th pregnancy. And so when she was on bed rest, it really brought them closer together because it forced them to spend time together. And she really appreciated the way that he was there for her when she was at her rock bottom. There was a wall between us and I'd put it there. That night, after the cancellation and the heartbreak of Stella's disappointment, I looked at Dean and that wall came crashing down. Behind it, I saw him waiting there for me with open arms. It was Dean, the man whom I spotted 6 years ago in Ottawa on a Lifetime movie set.
Okay, so now she is back on bed rest in the hospital. And she has this idea for a TV show about moms or something. She has this pitch call with Nickelodeon and she thinks it got canceled. So she takes pain-killing drugs.
She has another migraine. She always has a migraine.
I was nearly catatonic. Delau did is called hospital heroin. Most people can't get a sentence out when they're on it. And then the guy that she's pitching with is like, Tori came up with this great idea. I'll let her take it away. And so she pitches. It goes well. I'm going to guess that was the first time in Hollywood history that someone sold a show from a hospital on bed rest on a narcotic. That is absolutely not true.
How do you think they came up with the mysteries of Laura?
I've seen television. I know people are on bed rest on narcotics. So then she makes it to 24 weeks and thinks she's out of the woods. And they're like, no, this is like the earliest that you like might have a chance. And suddenly it all kind of dawns on her how serious this was this whole time that she's been in the hospital on bed rest.
So finally she like keeps manifesting. And after 55 days, her placenta actually moved back to where it was supposed to be. And she's no longer considered a risk and she gets to go home, but she has to stay in a nearby hotel. She's so happy. On the 4th of July, we wrapped a bandage around my ankle so it looked like I'd hurt myself, and Dean put me in a wheelchair and wheeled me down to the pool. Why?
Like, why can't she just...
What? Who are we lying to?
I don't know. And I feel really bad because she's afraid her kids are traumatized, which, like, I don't know that they're not.
Yeah.
Like, her daughter found her in a pool of blood when she was first admitted to the hospital. Like, this is very scary stuff. What about that other time
when the water broke on top of that same daughter?
Okay. She's like, it's so random. Stella says she doesn't want kids.
Oh, yeah, because the first time she bled so bad she had to go to the hospital, Stella was in bed with her and Dean was in bed with Liam across the hall. And she woke up and was just covered in blood. And she's like, I hope that's not freaky for a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, now Stella's like, I never want to get married, so I never have to have a baby.
Yeah.
And it does, I mean, it's nobody's fault. But I am always like, wow, you guys really do not share a bed, huh?
Well, not since Hank took over. Yeah, I mean, no, it is just sad, and I'm glad that everything turned out okay. Oh my God, you know what's so sad? So she's in the hospital, and she misses Liam's preschool graduation, and everyone goes around and says what they want to be when they grow up, and she's watching on FaceTime, and he says, when I grow up, I want to be a basketball player. That just made me cry even harder. When you're 4 years old, you believe anything's possible. I loved that he was setting really big, unattainable goals. So innocent. Why can't you just let him think he's going to be a basketball player until he gets one other hobby?
What are you so stupid? That's so cute.
Being like, it's so cute how fucking delusional my preschooler is, that idiot.
So she ends up having the baby. She has a C-section. She actually ends up having it at like 38 weeks. They get to pick the date. Perfectly healthy. All is good.
They had to plan it around a work event.
I will say she had to work. She had an appearance for Lunchables. And she's like, I can't miss it. And then they were trying to figure out what day was good for everybody. And they brought in an astrologer and a Reiki healer. And finally they were like, you have to just do August 30th. So she like went to this Lunchables event at the Bel Air Hotel and then
went to go have her baby.
She gets home.
And now Stella is in a new school and she's so excited to get more involved now that she's off bed rest. She has a new baby.
Her thing is thinking she's better at crafts than every other mother in the world.
And I would venture a guess that she's actually worse at crafts than any other human on the planet.
The thing about Tori Spelling is there's nothing she can do except for she actually does pitch really smart TV shows.
Yeah, they just don't get made, but that's not her fault.
It's not her fault. The first one she pitched to Nick at Night was Momtrepreneurs, which, okay, we can work on the title. But it was like Real Housewives about a momtrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like women who work. And then the other one was about two former co-stars of like a teen sitcom in the 90s.
A crime-fighting duo.
And then there's a small town murder. And the only guy who witnessed it is kind of insane and refuses to talk to any detectives but the detectives from that show. So they have to reprise their roles in real life and help solve the crime. I actually was like, that's a great movie.
I would watch it. So Stella is in a new school. She like goes to the first day of preschool introduction. They have parties for every holiday. There's nothing I love more than bringing homemade, theme-appropriate, kid-friendly food to a holiday party. Put that on a tombstone. She lived, she loved, she brought theme-appropriate, kid-friendly food to holiday parties.
The problem is she goes to sign up for the holiday parties and the options are grapes, crackers, carrot sticks, juice boxes, or pizza. My mouth fell open in horror. There wasn't even a space for other. How could I make something special?
No themed holiday food. The world was ending.
And she's like, can I make something homemade or is that illegal? And they're like, no, we love it. We just don't want people to feel bad or anything. So why don't you sign up for class parent?
So she's like, oh my God, class parent. That's a really good idea because then I can control the parties.
And then she's like, you'll never believe it. There were so many emails for class parent. And I'm like, well, you signed up for it.
Yeah.
But around this time, she starts feeling a lot of pain in her C-section scar. This is, of course, her 4th C-section. So she knows what it should and shouldn't feel like. And she's like, something is up. It takes them a week to see her. And in that time, she's hobbling along.
She's hobbling along. She's in so much pain. She also has a meeting for her children's clothing line for the launch of a new line. And she sits down for a brainstorm. And luckily, she's so good at ideas that kind of subsides the pain for a minute. But after she finished brainstorming, the pain comes surging back.
So she goes to the doctor and it turns out that her scar had like ripped open and you can see into her insides. And they're like, well, I think this is the cause of the pain.
And then she's like, well, can you sew me back up? And they go, no.
We have to fill it up with gauze.
And it'll sew itself up.
Which really makes me sad. So they keep sending a nurse to her house every single day to like wrap her up with gauze and change the bandages. And one day she gets there and she's like, you know what? It hurts pretty bad again. And they're like, okay, we'll keep an eye on it. So the next day she looks down and she goes, what's on my tummy? And it's a red bulb. And then she goes, I don't like the looks of this. They rush her to the ER and sure enough, it's her intestines.
Crawling out.
Anything to get away from Tori. They hate it in there. They want freedom.
And they should have it.
Ew. At one point, she's like, Dean, are you sad that you have to keep like bandaging up your wife? And he goes, nah, I feel like the luckiest man in the world. My wife has 4 holes. Did you fuck her intestines out of her body? Dean, did you fuck her intestines? Dean, I need you to look me in the eyes and tell me, did you fuck your wife's intestines?
Dean, I fucking swear to fucking God, you should be in prison and this isn't even why.
Imagine watching your wife get a baby pulled out of her tummy and you go, pack it in tight. I'm going to fuck that later.
I wish I could stick my dick in now.
3 in the pink, 1 in the stink. This time the stink is your nose and the pink is your intestines. We do it when you're in a crunch position and you need really long fingers.
Stop. I want to die. Okay, so she goes to the hospital and they say, yeah, we got to do emergency surgery literally right now. And she goes, you cannot give me anesthesia. I ate soup today. And they were like, what?
You know what sucks is that she later talks about how she doesn't work out. So the way that she loses weight is the air diet. And I am like, I can't believe your one meal of the day was chicken noodle soup right before you needed anesthesia. Most of the day, I think she hasn't eaten.
Yeah. Okay, so she's like, you can't give me anesthesia because I'll die. Because she finds out the reason you can't eat before having surgery is that you could get nauseous on anesthesia and throw up. And if you throw up when you're under, you could suffocate yourself. So she's like, I don't want to die right now. And they're like, right, but you do need major surgery literally right now. And she's like, no, just give me an epidural. And so they just give her an epidural and they rearrange her intestines.
They had to take them out, wash them, and put them back. I'm sorry. You telling me you put Dial soap on my tummy innards and my gizzards?
You don't know what kind of soap they use. They might have special shampoo.
You think they got like a cucumber melon?
I have special shampoo for bug. You think they don't have special shampoo for guts?
Why would they need to be washed? What got them dirty?
The fucking got them dirty. Where have you
nasty,
been?
grody penis got dirt on her intestines.
You think Dean is shooting clean cum into her guts?
I also feel like it was just the general sweat of the area.
Yeah, also I think your guts being exposed to air. LA has so much smog.
She had smoggy, cummy guts. They ain't never seen that before.
I never seen it since.
Anyway, so she refuses to get anesthesia. They give her an epidural. And then when they're pulling out her guts, they're like, you have to stop moving around. And then they're like, we sewed you up, but we didn't do that good of a job because you wouldn't stop fucking flailing. And then later her doctor is like, why didn't they give you anesthesia? And she's like, I don't know. They shouldn't have listened to me. I'm just like, yeah.
Like, why did they listen to you? But also, what's wrong with you? They told you that you needed anesthesia and you said no.
I understand that you never assume they're going to take all your intestines out and then reshuffle them around and put them back in. But also, if my intestines were already out, I want to go, well, it's only up from here.
Anyway, the hospital staff was rude. There was this woman who said she was like a VIP concierge, but Tori got no VIP treatment.
And to drive the point home that they're completely discreet, she made sure to tell me that when Heather Locklear was hospitalized after a 911 call, this is where she had been admitted, and none of the staff had leaked anything. She was proud of their security. So why was she telling me this? Why were you putting it in a book?
Yeah.
I really feel like the point you need to make about Heather Locklear, and I know you didn't sign up for HIPAA, but you could guess.
You could guess. At one point, she has to film a voiceover for Glad bags, and this woman, the VIP woman, is so mad that there's recording equipment in the hospital. And she's like, I thought I was a VIP. VIPs have to do Glad voiceovers.
So then she goes home finally, and she's like resting up from her surgery, and she reads online that the worst thing that can happen to you is you don't poop, and then you get sepsis, and then you die.
Right. So she starts mainlining laxatives.
And then suddenly she's shitting herself and puking herself, and she's hot and she's sweaty, and she's like, well, this is it. This is the no pooping. It's come to kill me. I'm full of sepsis. And he takes her to the hospital, and then they tell this nurse, they go, she can't fucking wait in the waiting room. She's an actress who shit herself. And the nurse is like, it's so true. Get in this wheelchair. And they hit a bump, and she falls into the bushes, and she's face down in the bushes, a shitty ass up. And another nurse is like, she can't cut the system. She has to go to the waiting room. And nurse one's like, she's an actress who shit herself. Meanwhile, she's face down in the bushes, crying. She's shit and barfing. And she thinks she's gonna die.
She's wearing a lavender sundress.
She's called all her friends to say goodbye. They get her to the doctor, and you know what? It turned out
she laxatived herself too hard. I flew out of the wheelchair into the bushes. I'm sorry, Tori, but why did you tell us?
She's so happy, though, because on the way to the ER, when they call her doctor to be like, she's shitting and pissing and puking everywhere, the doctor goes, God damn it. And they're like, normally he's so calm. So the fact that I broke him meant I was really dying. I wonder if he was just like, enough, Tori. I guess Dean starts like tearing up, thinking that she's about to die. And she's like, got him. He would hate it if I died. She's like, he tries to deny it, but he would hate if I died. And I go,
if you asked him right now, he said, I've already got the party planned, but really, he'd hate it.
He'd never admit that he wants me alive, but I saw him tear up.
Oh, then there's a party at school, and she makes all these like monster treats for the Halloween
none of the
party.
kids will eat them. This other mom comes up with like plastic cups with googly eyes and grapes, and she's like, what are you, a fucking piece of shit? So she shows up with monster fingernails, and it turns out the kids are freaked out by the monster fingers and only want grapes. And she's like, I hate it here.
She doesn't fit in anywhere.
And so then for the next holiday, Christmas, they're supposed to do like a Christmas in every country. And she's like, I'd love to bring food from every single country in the world that celebrates Christmas. And somebody's like, you know, we don't want to get too competitive. And she's like, fine, then I won't even try. And then she finds out that this deli she loves has a bar. And she's like, can you fucking believe it? So that was fun. Again, what are we talking about, Tori?
What are we talking about?
And then she goes to an estate sale, and the guy who's selling stuff has got a real sass to him. And I don't even know what she's talking about. She's like, I can't wait to tell my friends. But then we went to a concert, and I couldn't tell them because the concert was loud, and I had forgotten that that's how concerts are. Next chapter. She goes, this is how I know I'm Aaron Spelling's daughter, because I'm seeing this guy. He's giving me some lip. He's got sass up the ass, and I'm going, this should be a TV show. Sorry, I'm a Spelling. Okay. You found a kook. Congrats.
I love her.
And it's so funny. She's so offended because this kook at the estate sale keeps upcharging her. He goes, what, are you going to sell it? You're a collector. You're just going to sell it on eBay? And she's like, how dare you think that? Anyway, I was looking for things for my store, inventory, where I upsell antiques I find at estate sales. Meanwhile, okay, we'll get to later how successful it is. You'll never believe it.
It turns out to be a money pit. It turns out people only go to buy candles.
And to see her in the flesh.
And she's never even there.
So she has this moment where somebody calls her full name. And she goes, don't call me that. She says, I hate it when people say my full name. In school and afterward, I'd been ridiculed for being a rich producer's daughter. The world was convinced that the only way I could have landed my part on 90210 was through nepotism. I'd always hated the notion of being Tori Spelling and being Aaron Spelling's daughter. My friends always call me T. But they're like, you have to take it on. And then she comes up with that idea for the old school women sitcom girls to come back and reprise their role as actual detectives.
And she's like, oh, I am Aaron Spelling's daughter.
That's such a good idea. And you know what? That is a good idea.
I would watch it. Okay, so now she's talking about money and things are bad.
She goes, I know it sounds odd coming from a Spelling, but the loss of Tori and Dean couldn't have come at a worse time financially. My real estate compulsion had put us in serious debt. She goes, I had a terrible habit of going to denial about my finances. She's like, I overspend. I also keep moving. Also, my show had been canceled. Also, all my business ventures, like my HSN jewelry and my inventory store, it turns out all of them were like negative money.
Yeah. So they're living in this rental and she's like, okay, so I have no money. I had to be smarter with my money. I think we should go to Tahoe for New Year's.
Oh, no. They're going to go nowhere for Christmas.
Right. But then they're too sad about it. So they have to go to Tahoe for New Year's.
And everything's booked. So she finds a condo and then she's like, this condo fucking sucks. And so she wakes up and she goes, we just go to the Ritz, please. So they go to the Ritz and it turns out the Ritz sucks too.
There's no room at the Ritz. So they had to go to the Hilton or the Hyatt next door.
I don't know, but they bring like 6 people. So they have 2 nannies in tow. And she's like, you don't understand. The real kicker is that there was no room service. And she goes, with 4 constantly hungry little mouths, plus Jack, our growing teenager, we couldn't rely on restaurants. Morning and night, we would be continually running out into the cold for food. Sure, you could argue we had 2 nannies. But the fact of the matter was that I didn't usually leave the kids with the nannies. We all went everywhere together.
What the fuck?
That's not true. You're working all the time. You just spent 3 months in the hospital. Do a fucking run to Popeyes. Or even just take 1 kid to Popeyes. Like, why do you have 2 nannies? And then she's like, anyway, we would take 1 kid skiing and then the little babies would be with Patty and then the nanny would be with the other children. And I'm like, okay, so what about that? Like, then why do you have 2 nannies on vacation if you never leave them alone?
Yeah. And then it turns out the Ritz sucks too because the fire alarm goes off when she's trying to drink wine.
And she feels so sad because Dean is like, I knew it. As soon as we walked in, I could tell this wouldn't work for you. I said, that makes me feel bad. I'm not that girl. But I was. Then I said, it's not my fault. I'm an uptown girl stuck in a midtown life. I was raised in opulence. My standards are ridiculously high. We can't afford that lifestyle, but when you grow up with a silver spoon, it's hard to go back to plastic.
What does she think midtown is like? Because I think she's completely right that she does live a midtown life, but I don't think she knows why.
And then they go to the Hyatt. The Hyatt said it was ski in, ski out, but it was actually like a van to a ski in, ski out. I don't know. In this book, she talks about 13 different hotels and she'll be like, they put me up once at the Ritz-Carlton. It wasn't a regular Ritz-Carlton. It was horrible.
Oh, and then they're on vacation and Hattie has a seizure. Hattie's seizure was kind of good because since she missed all that bonding time with Hattie because she was on bed rest with Finn, then when Hattie has a seizure, she like cuddles with Tori and Tori's like, oh my God, that was awesome.
And this was after there was no room service. So they really were like, wow, this was the worst vacation ever.
We are never going back to Tahoe.
And then like any postpartum mom, I had wanted to get back to my fighting weight. I had it pretty easy after Liam and Stella, but I never got back into shape after Hattie was born because I got pregnant right away. And then I went on bed rest. And with the complications after Finn's birth, I didn't worry about how I looked until I felt I had my strength back. So it's 7 months later. And I guess somebody took a photo and they're like, wow, Tori, how'd you get so skinny? And she was like, thank you, I starved. So they decided to do a bikini body photo shoot.
She tries to work out one time and then she gets like a hernia and she has to go get surgery.
And all of her friends are like, why would you be doing this? You just got off bed rest. And she's like, that was a while ago. And then sure enough, she does have to go to the hospital. And she's like, I guess I should have been hiking. She also at this point has a full family photo on like glossy paper that is so pixelated that I'm like, why don't you have a second photo of your family? This looks like an Instagram they stretched.
Yes. And then she does this magazine shoot. She has to like get a tummy tuck when she goes to the hospital for her hernia surgery.
But she won't do it because she's like, I won't let them say that I got my body in a natural way. I want everybody to be jealous of my natural way of getting skinny. And then also the PR person's like, you have to say you worked out because nobody wants to know that you just starved for that body.
So she's like, okay, I swam.
And then something really crazy happens.
Oh my God. So she thinks that there's an intruder at their house and she's baking cakes. And then she calls the police and she's like, there's an intruder. We are 3 women alone. My husband is out of town, her 2 nannies, and then all the kids. And the cakes are in the oven. And then the police are taking their sweet time. And she calls them back to be like, where the fuck are you? I have to get my cakes out of the oven and I can't leave my safe space. And the police are like, what the fuck? So the police finally arrive and she goes, hold on 1 second. Let me get the cakes.
And they don't see anything, but they're like, all of the doors in your house are unlocked. And she's like, yeah,
they don't lock.
And then the police goes, I would call the security situation here unlivable. I don't know how you sleep a wink at night. And then she's like, so you think I have to go to a hotel? And they're like, well, no, you don't have to go to a hotel. And she's like, you already said it's unlivable. So they go to a hotel.
And then Dean is like, what are you doing here? Because then he flies in and they have to move again.
She finally goes, what was I looking for in all these new houses? I had a notion of a home that would complete me, complete our family. And I kept thinking I'd found it, but I was never happy. I wanted a stable life. I want something permanent. I needed that. My family needed that. But what if I never found it? I didn't want to chase an impossible dream. So then she calls her mom to ask for money. And her mom's like, why can't you pay me back the old money? And she's like, we lost money on everything. And her mom is like, okay, well, let's figure out a system. And she's like, fine, I'll do it myself. Her mom comes across really good in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then her mom's like, I really respect that you're trying to pay for your children's education on your own. You're a real adult. And then Dean is like, I'm going to a motorcycle race. And she's like, I hate you. And then he comes back and he goes, guess what? I didn't even sign up. He expected me to thank him. I couldn't do it, but I said, I'm proud of you, but I don't want you to do it for me. I want you to do it for the family. And then she's like, me and Dean will never see eye to eye on almost anything, but we still love each other.
And then she has to have a birthday party that's like poor style for Liam, where she just gets like free McDonald's from a McDonald's sponsorship and free Crocs from a Crocs sponsorship. And then she has a bouncy house and Jack breaks his nose in the bouncy house before the party starts. So she wipes all the blood off of the bouncy house and then still sends other children into the bouncy house. And that's that.
Anyway, she's learned a lot over the past few years and she's stronger than ever.
I am looking forward to the next one. Tori, let us know when it's coming.
I don't even know what to say.
I found this one a lot more stressful than the other ones, and I don't know why.
Because they clearly have problems and their way of solution is like live beings. Be it pig, be it child. I mean, she was actually in the hospital for like 6 months of this book.
Yeah.
It was weird because like this time things were happening and kids are at stake. And nothing gets better.
Before, when she's like, LOL jury duty, you're like, LOL indeed. But now when she's like, I have a shopping addiction and 5 mouths to feed, you're like, well, fix it.
Oh my God. I don't have anything else to say. Summer of Spelling, you wore me out.
You did me in.
I can't believe we have to read Mary Jo Eunice's book and Candy Spelling's book for the Patreons.
I can't wait.
All right. I love you guys. We're not going to do a worm teeny because I think
you could guess.
But who do we love?
We love our 5-star reviewing wormies.